Welcome to All Grown Up Now, Tales of a Checkered Past. I'm Kenneth D. King, podcasting from my studio near Union Square in New York City. This podcast is an evolution of the tale, All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts. This is Season 2, and it's called Tales of a Checkered Past. It's a collection of short stories from my salad days on up to the present. In each podcast, another self-contained story will be presented. Enjoy. With Valentine's Day coming soon, I got a request to reprise one of my earlier podcasts that I call the Valentine's Day Jinx. So, I hope you enjoy it. Happy Valentine's Day. For me, Valentine's Day was jinxed for 30 years. This is the story. I lost my virginity on Valentine's Day in 1980. And he gave me a 2-pound box of Godiva chocolate. This was a big damn deal, as Godiva chocolate sold for $35 a pound in 1980, when my rent was $100 a month, and there was only one very fancy store in Oklahoma City that sold them. I didn't give it up because of that, but it helped. All in all, a very fond memory. Good times. But there's more to this story. Losing my virginity on Valentine's Day put a jinx on that day. Yes, a jinx. Now, mind you, I didn't notice at first. The next year, 1981, I was dating Daryl, a really sweet guy. He took me to a very fancy restaurant for a nice meal, and on the way home, I started feeling off. Daryl didn't know what was going on because I didn't let on. He left me at my door with a goodnight kiss. It was only the next day, after being violently ill all night, that I figured that it was food poisoning. I called in sick. Later that morning, Daryl tried to call me at work. They told him I was ill. He rushed to my little apartment to nurse me, feeling personally responsible for my illness. I had to reassure him that he himself didn't put the poison in the food. He was sweet that way. Later, after moving to San Francisco, that first Valentine's Day was a wash. I wasn't dating anyone, being so new in town, so I stayed home, not wanting to look desperate and single and sad. It was only the next year that I thought something might be up. By this time, I was with my trophy husband. For the first 6 months or so, we were banging like rabbits. But Valentine's Day? Nothing. Nothing. After that, every year, no sex. None. Strange. But since I had lost my virginity on Valentine's Day, I always associated that day with, well, you know. So I noticed. I started keeping track. Every year, I was with the trophy husband. Nope. He and I split up in December of 1987, so come Valentine's Day, I wasn't in the mood. And besides, for the first 6 months or so of 1988, because of the breakup and the stock market crash, I lived in my studio. No place to take someone, even if I wanted to. Not that I was a nun overall, but on Valentine's Day, nothing. This trend continued into the 90s. There were times I would be dating someone and think, maybe this year. But something would happen. They were out of town. I was out of town. They weren't in the mood. I was always in the mood. One year, I went to dinner with my friend Eric, just a friend, in the Castro. After dinner, we were walking along Market Street, planning on crossing at Noe. The light turned, and I stepped off the curb. Eric grabbed my shoulder, pulled me back, and said, "Stop! There's a man over there with a gun." I looked across the street. And indeed, there was. He was walking towards Sanchez Street, swinging a gun, and another man was walking the opposite way. They met right in front of the cafe floor. Words were exchanged. The gunman raised the gun and... As an aside, at the trial, the injured man told me that just before he got shot, he had said to the gunman, "So what are you going to do? Shoot me?" Stupid. The man dropped to the pavement, and the gunman casually walked away. The street cleared immediately. There we stood, astonished. My first thought was that someone was filming a low-budget movie. I immediately started looking for the cameras, but there were none. "Let's get out of here," Eric said. "Wait," I said. "We just witnessed a shooting. If you were the one getting shot, wouldn't you want someone to stick around?" He scowled. "Oh, all right." We ran across the street right when the injured man tried to stand up. Eric and I picked him up between us, took him into the cafe floor, and sat him down. By this time, we heard sirens. Moments later, a police car screeched to a halt in front. A policeman got out of the car and walked into the cafe. "Officer, we both saw what happened," I said. "Could you identify the gunman?" he asked. "Yes." Eric nodded too and pointed toward Sanchez Street. "He went that way." The policeman radioed and then came back. "There's someone sitting at the bus stop at Sanchez. Do you think you could give a positive ID?" he asked. "Get in the car and we'll drive over." So Eric and I piled into the back of the police car. Now, for the record, this is the only time I've ridden in the back of a police car. Just saying. One of the policemen drove us the block to Market and Sanchez. He put on the searchlight and aimed it at the gunman. There the guy was, sitting on the bench at the bus stop, stoned out of his mind. "That him?" he asked. We both said yes. He radioed, "We have a positive ID." "I'll have to take you to the station to file a report," he said. "We'll get you home after." And off we went. Another jinxed Valentine's Day. While we waited at the station to file the reports, I learned that they handcuffed the working girls to what looked like a railing before they would admit them. These gals looked like what you'd expect from central casting. They flirted with us, saying things like, "Hey, honey, want a date?" I figured that if they couldn't tell we were gay, they weren't too bright, probably why they were there in the first place. So that particular Valentine's Day ended with Eric and me heckling the hose and filling out police reports. I got dumped on another Valentine's Day. His name was William. He drove a burgundy, 4-door Volvo with an automatic transmission and cheap plastic seat covers, which should have been my first clue. He was tall and good-looking, but, shall we say, too methodical. He took forever to make a point in everything. Everything. He organized his condoms alphabetically. Fun in the moment, sort of. But I knew it wasn't going to last. That particular Valentine's Day, after an early dinner, we drove to the marina. He parked the car. I thought, it's been years since I made out in a parked car. I don't understand why we just don't go to his place or mine. William started stammering. Oh, great. Taking forever to make a point, as usual. He was saying things like, friends, it's been a good time, Exasperated, I looked over at him and said, "Oh, out with it, man. Just say it. You're breaking up with me." He looked surprised. "Well, isn't that what this is?" I asked. "You don't have to take forever to make a point. Just say it." Yeah. Okay then, I said, and I got out of the car and walked home for another Jinx Valentine's Day. And so it went, year after year. Either I was dating someone and something would interfere, or I wasn't dating someone. Going to a sex club on Valentine's Day seemed so sad and inadequate, so I just stayed home. I was reminded of the man who lost his virginity right about the time an earthquake struck. He said to me, "It's just never been the same since." That's what I was feeling. However, 30 years later, the jinx broke. It was in 2010 after I moved to New York. For a while now, I had accepted that I might end up single, and I was okay with that. My friend Stuart had said many times that I was a specialty item, not for the general public. When Valentine's Day came around, I accepted that the jinx was still there. That morning, I went to the gym and had a nice workout. In the steam room, I eyed a cute red-headed guy. He looked like Jimmy Olsen in the old Superman comics, geeky and sexy with blue-white skin and a shock of red hair. Overall appealing. He smiled and sidled over to me. Interesting, I thought. He leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Would you like to go back to my place? I live near here." Well, I didn't have to be asked twice. After a lovely interlude, thoroughly satisfied, I was walking home through Chelsea, and I was stopped by two guys on bicycles. "Great jacket," one of them said. "Is it hand-woven?" "Well, thanks," I said. "It's a vintage Gloria Vanderbilt from the 80s. He looked at his friend, and then he looked back at me. "How'd you like to make some money?" he asked. "You want to buy my jacket?" I asked, puzzled. "No," he said meaningfully. "Then what?" "Well, me and my friend here." Then he grinned. A beat skipped. "Oh," I gasped. "Well," he said, "while I'm flattered, I prefer to keep my amateur status, thanks," I replied. That put a spring into my step all the way home. Later that afternoon, an old paramour, okay, fuck buddy, called to inquire if I were in need of a massage. He asked so nicely. How could I say no? After a satisfying massage, I shooed him out. I was hungry. I hadn't had breakfast or lunch. I had been busy all day. So I put on my coat and headed out the door, rounded the corner, and ran smack dab into another short-time paramour who seemed so very glad to see me. Since we were so close to my place, and I seemed to be on a roll, well, how could I say no? It would be impolite. So, the Valentine's Day jinx lasted 30 years, but when it broke with a vengeance. Thanks for listening. You can get the audiobook All Grown Up Now on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon, or from my website, allgrownupnow.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. If you have any questions, you can reach me through the website, allgrownupnow.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Kenneth D. King, on Facebook at Kenneth D. King Design, or on my main website, KennethDKing.com.